Hi, this is Michael Buffer, and welcome to the BoxHard Podcast.
Hello, everyone. This is Mikey Garcia.
This the monster from the swamps, Regis Rougarou Prograis.
Hey, what's up? This is King Carlos Molina, former IBF World Champ.
This is Michael, the Bounty Hunter, 2012 Olympian and your people's champ.
This is Charlie Edwards, flyweight champion of the world.
This is Fast Eddie Chambers, and you're listening to the BoxHard Podcast with my main man, Joey Coastman.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 241 of the BoxHard Podcast. I'm your host, Joey Coastman. I'm joined this week by one of my best friends in the world. It goes a lot deeper than just boxing. It is, of course, the former heavyweight world title challenger, Mr. Eddie Chambers. Eddie, how are you?
I'm good, my man. How are you feeling?
Real good, man. Whenever I speak to you, I'm always feeling good. Like I say to the listeners, the last few weeks, it has been a struggle trying to, come up with topics and stuff like that. Again, if you've got any topics that you want to suggest for the forthcoming weeks of shows, send them in on Twitter at BoxHard Podcast. There will be another world champion on this show, as the same as last week and a few weeks now during this lockdown. But yeah, we're kind of a bit flat on what we're going to discuss. So me and Eddie have thought of a segment. Eddie has been in boxing for a long, long time. He's seen it all. He's done it all. He has a T-shirt, and he's got a lot of stories along the way. So we're gonna call this segment Eddie's Story Time, or something along those lines. If you can think of something, by the way, again, we're open to suggestions. If you can think of something, what Eddie can call his little segment, his story time, Eddie's Corner, something like that. Fast Eddie's lockdown talk. I don't know, whatever you want to call it.
I like the lockdown talk thing. That sounds kind of cool, actually.
Eddie's lockdown, knockdown. I don't know.
Lockdown, knockdown. I really like that one.
Yeah,
Eddie's lockdown, knockdown. Yeah, we might have to use that one. I don't know,
Joe. Have to use that one. But like I said, we're open to suggestions. And basically, me and Eddie, well, not really me. I'm going to just sit back, kick back, and listen. Eddie's like I say, got tons and tons of stories. He's going to tell us some of the most interesting stories that he has to share. And it's going to be interesting. So let's get into that. And we're going to hopefully do this, many times during the upcoming weeks while there's not much boxing news to discuss. So Eddie, volume 1 here. Start wherever you like. Perhaps start early on, towards the early part of your career, and we'll work our way up right to the latest stuff. Obviously with the Furies, where things get real interesting. But yeah, what interesting story have you got for us this week?
Well, what is funny, man. Fighters, and we all talk about what people don't know. There's a lot of talk, obviously, about fighters, about what the lay fan would say about a fighter, and I can't believe he got in there, fat or blah blah blah, and they just don't really see what's going on behind the scenes, to see how much work it takes and how many things we have to really deal with through the course of a camp, or just in general with everyday life on top of boxing. You know what I'm saying? And for us, for me and my brother Steve, it was pretty simple, even though it was hard and difficult, and we almost was like on lockdown mode, like we are right now in boxing with my father, because my dad was all about following the rules 100%. And for us, a getaway, and I know this is gonna sound ridiculous, but for us, a getaway was going to camp. Now we talk about going to camp. We talking about going, like when people say Big Bear, like you remember hearing Ariola talk about Big Bear, like I really don't like Big Bear because it's like going away from everything. Well, for us, that was kind of almost like a vacation type thing for us, because all we did when we were home, for the most part, was train. And we trained some more, and we were training 3 times a day, even before I got with the Furies. When by the way, I wanted to mention, I was training 3 times a day then, but obviously the training wasn't as intense. It was intense, but it wasn't as intense as what I dealt with there. But I remember one particular scenario when, and even though we liked sometimes going away to camps. Not all camps were created equal too. Like one of the first camps I went to was Monte Barrett. I love Monte Barrett. That's one of my favorite guys in boxing, to be honest. And he's always been real cool, real straightforward. You know, he taught us some things about the sport, let us know what to really what to look for as far as business on, you know, some of the parts of the business, but you know, also with the sport itself. And I learned a lot from him. But I remember the first camp we went to, and Malik wasn't at this one. Joe, I just want to let you know, because I think I got it confused when we were talking a little bit before about this story. We were to go up to work with Monty, and this was like kind of spur of the moment. I think we were supposed to go up for 2 weeks, I think was the initial idea, and I think that's what we ended up doing. And for us, you know, we're used to being able to, you know, me and my brother would literally take our system. And I think at the time it was like, a PS2 or something. And we made sure that we have our system with us, because that's what we do. We watch movies and play video games. That's all we really had. We try to talk to girls every now and again, but, you know, that pretty much was kind of tough because we wasn't really allowed to do that. But the idea was we were going up to this guy's Catskill Mountains or whatever to go up to work with Monty. And I think that's what they were saying. You know, Mike Tyson, this was the big thing when we were on our way up there. It was like, oh, yeah, Mike Tyson used to train up here. This is where you're going to get right. And you're going up to work with a world-class guy, you know, talking about Monte Barrett. This is just a great thing. And we're, you know, kind of going into it a little happy about it, a little upset, too, because, like, yo, I mean, we didn't even bring our system. We forgot. You said it's only 2 weeks, so they was kind of rushing us to get our stuff and get on out. And I'm like, man, we ain't get a chance to bring the game up. You know, we're going to be just sitting there bored. Like, what are we going to be doing? And, like, I hope they got a video store up there so we can get some DVDs or something. This was back when DVDs were still in play. But anyway, so we get up there, and it was everything that they said but worse. You know what I'm saying? Because, first off, the water. When you turn the water on, there was something wrong with, I don't know, some system, some issue, whatever, with the water, where you can smell the sulfur in the water. It smelled like raw eggs every time you turn the water on. And for the longest time, yo, I swear, when we left the camp, I kept smelling that smell. It stuck with me for a minute. It was horrible, like taking showers. And the thing is, it didn't actually, the smell didn't necessarily get on you, but it was just like, just the smell is like, man, I'm supposed to be clean after taking a shower and that crap. I might as well jump in some algae or something in dirt, you know what I mean, in the shower. That's what it felt like. I mean, it was kind of nasty, but we had to deal with it. And it was like, all right, then they take us to this room. Now, don't get me wrong. This is secluded. This is a situation where you're supposed to be away from everybody. You're supposed to be thinking only about boxing. I get it. But we're kids, man. We're like, I think I was 21. Steve was 18. We're like still not even, we don't even understand what we're really into, to be honest. And they got us in two, like there was 3 rooms, I think, in the area we were in. And like I told you, there wasn't no real entertainment. Like Malik wasn't there this time, like I told you before. So it wasn't no funny guys or anything to really keep us entertained. They did have 1 DVD player and 1 TV. And there was another fighter up there, too, by the name of Vinny Matalone, who, good guy, really good guys, one of the nicer guys, especially when you first meet him in boxing. But it was just like, I remember we went into the rooms, and I'm looking at the room, and I'm looking at these old wool blankets and these beds, and I'm sitting there like there's no TV in the room. And I used to love to go to bed with a TV on because I'm so used to watching like movies, and then me and Steve, like, we watch a movie, put something on, and pass out while it's on. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. None of that stuff was possible. Like, we literally had to sit there and look at the ceiling until we passed out. And I remember being up sometimes like 2 or 3 in the morning just looking at the wall like, yo, I cannot wait to go home. Like, I just couldn't wait to leave. And I'm sitting there thinking, like, we have to be here. And I know it seems ridiculous, but we had to be there for 2 weeks. It felt like, listen, an hour felt like a day. You understand what I'm saying? An hour felt like a day. So it was almost like we were looking forward so much more to get into the gym than just regular. You know what I'm saying? And it was crazy, man. And I remember, like, trying to find different things. Like, we had a couple of different there was actually a DVD store. So, like, one of the days that we had, I guess we had a little downtime on or whatever, which, you know, it seemed like, you know, forever. But we had a little downtime. So we went to this little market area or whatever, and they had like a DVD store there. And we went and picked up some movies. And so we got home. We kind of made it, I guess, livable. You know what I mean? For us. And like I said, we were so, like, into the technology. Like, I think we both had phones. No, I didn't have a phone. My brother had a phone. And but it was just all about boxing. So when people say, "Oh man, I dread man going to camp," it's not so much the training aspect that goes to camp. It's the things that you're giving up, right? Because if you ever talk to a fighter that's really been involved in that and had to go away camp and get prepared like mentally and things like that and just sparring and training and running and all that, he'll tell you the worst part of it all is being away from everything and not being able to do some of the regular things that you used to do in life. Of course, women, you can't hang out with your woman, your wife or your girl or your girls or whoever you might have going on. You can't do none of those things. And with us, that was something we were kind of used to anyway, because my dad was like a drill sergeant and we couldn't do nothing when it was training time. And they used to come up with this thing too. If it's 3 weeks out from your fight, or no, I'm sorry, 4 weeks out from your fight, you can't have any contact with women. Not only that, if it's like the week of your fight, not only do you not have any contact with anybody for the most part, like anybody, but you get your phone taken from you. So now all of that stuff is out. So the outside world is basically cut off from you. And this went on for a long period of time. And it's like, man, I'm up at this camp. It's already like being there is just like watching paint dry, except for when you're training. And I'm just like, I can't do this, man. Like I'm sitting there, me and Steve are basically like crying and begging to go home. And then not only that, my dad's on top of us, making us get up at like 4 in the morning, go out and run hard. Then we got to come back in and we got to keep our same schedule, because most of the time when you go to camps, you're on your own schedule as far as the training you do extra, like the extracurriculars. Like say if you like going to the gym, you want to hit the bags, you want to train or whatever on a day that's not, there's no sparring, then you're free to do it, but you just got to do it on your own schedule. So it's like my dad still wants us to do our 3-a-days. We still gotta, damn, I can't even get it out. We still got to run in the morning. We still got to do the lifting if they have the weights available. So, man, it was just like, it was nothing. It was all work and no play. You know what I mean? I really appreciated the opportunity and getting to be able to work with somebody like a Monte Barrett. And the work was hard too, by the way. You know what I mean? You get your bumps and bruises up there, even though I feel like I did well and held my own with it. It was just like, and remember, Steve, who's 140 pounds, doesn't even have the opportunity to spar with anybody. So he's just got to just be up there next to me and work and deal with all of this agony when he don't even have a fight coming up. I don't even think he had a fight coming up. And shit, I don't even think I had a fight coming up. And it was just like, oh, we just going up here for the experience, man. You just got to go up here for the experience. And I'm sitting there like, man, forget the experience. I ain't trying to go up to this place, man. I can't even bring my system. I ain't going to be. I'm like, oh, man. It's like, it was just, I remember of all the camps I've had, and I don't want to say it like, oh, I didn't like being up there with Monty or a thing they had going on. It was just the circumstances. It was last minute, so he wasn't really 100% fully prepared, and it was just so ingrained in work, and it was like, dude, like the only good part was when my manager's son, who was a real good friend of mine at the time, would come up. And he would come. I would take a drive up because he was coming from Philly. He would take a drive up to the Catskills or whatever and hang out with us for a couple of days because he wanted to see how we trained and he also wanted to make sure we were all right and everything. But he would take us places, like we would go places. But I'm telling you, man, then we went to another camp up there. But believe me, when they asked us to come back to that next camp, it took. Oh my God, I was sitting there. I had my head in my lap. I was sitting there like, please God, let something happen to where we don't have to go to this camp. And I think in this time, because I don't know if you know who Dominic Gwynn is, right?
Yeah, yeah, of course. You boxed him a couple of times as well, didn't you?
Right. Well, I boxed him once, and I think I don't think I've seen him several times too. After that, he's a nice dude, but he was a tough fighter. And at the time,
who did you box twice? Who am I getting confused with?
Did I box? Oh, Derek Ross.
Yeah,
sorry.
Yeah, there we go. Go on.
Yeah. Well, Dominic Gwynn was actually the man at one point in the U.S. Like he was like the best hope for a world title coming out of the U.S. at one point. But anyway, so after the first camp that I had with them, I think there was like another period. There was a little period of time.
I just want to insert a fun fact.
What's that?
The night that you boxed Dominic Gwynn. I'm getting confused again. The night you boxed Dominic Gwynn, there was 3 judges. Of course, it went to the decision, a unanimous decision over 10 rounds for you. 2 of the judges, though, some people may know their names are quite spoken of. I can't believe this actually, but 2 of the judges were Adelaide Bird and CJ Ross, baby. I can't believe it.
Yo, why are you making me laugh?
Yo, listen,
but that is true. That
won.
Is crazy. I didn't realize
you won on Adelaide Bird's card 100-90. You completely shut him out. Do you know what that?
Right.
That you may have even lost that fight. If they both gave it to you, you probably lost that fight, Eddie.
I might have, yo. You know what's funny about that whole statement though? The funniest thing, right, is that fight wasn't not 190. And I'm gonna tell you why. I'm gonna tell you why it wasn't 190. It was because I kept giving him opportunities to stay in the fight. Now, granted, I felt like I won 8 out of 10 rounds probably, but I let him be in the fight. You understand what I'm saying? Like, and it was like, man, at the time I didn't think so. But when I watched the replay, I'm like, geez, man, I should have done so much more. Even with Calvin Brockis, another guy I fought at some point, and I kept giving them opportunities. Like, I felt like I beat Calvin Brock more. I think more decisively, I want to say. Maybe I won more rounds with Gwynn. But I think because the Calvin Brock fight was 12 rounds, the Gwynn was only 10. But I'm sitting there thinking, I think that I beat Brock more decisive than I did Gwynn. And Gwynn wasn't, obviously at that time, he had come down a little bit. He wasn't what he was. But anyway, I think we got off track a little bit, but because you wanted to bring up those judges, those 2 awesome judges that you brought up. They've had a great career in judging, as we can see with some of these scorecards they put out. You know what I mean? I don't want to be too disrespectful, but okay, let's leave it at that. But anyway, we were talking about those Monte Barrett cans. I'm gonna bring up the other one, and the second time we're going up there, and Rob comes with the news, and I think Steve told me beforehand that, oh man, I think we might be going back up to Monte's camp again. I'm like, are you serious? Like, yo, we just was up there, and I think it was probably like months before that, but it felt like we was just there. Like, come on, man. Anytime you go to a situation that you don't want to be at, you don't want to go back. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, oh, what the hell are we going to do? Like, how are we going to get out of this 0-8? We're not thinking about like, it's just a camp. Let's just deal with. No, we're thinking about, is there a way we can get out of this? Like, maybe fake an injury? Like, it was that bad the first time. Like, for us, we really, really didn't want to be there. It was just like, what the hell is we going back up to these Catskill Mountains? But the good thing is there was other people there this time, and we had a lot of entertainment. You know what I'm saying? There was I can't remember this guy's name. First I'm gonna name. It was me, my brother Steve, and of course Monte Barrett, and Malik Scott was there. Oh, big time entertainment with him for sure, without a doubt. And this, oh my God, yo,
world champion.
But then there was also this other guy, Talmadge Griffiths, who had fought Joe Macy at one point in his career, and I think he got stopped. I'm not sure, but of course, everybody has their idea of what should have happened and what could have, should have, would have happened in the fight. But anyway, and then there was another fighter up there. There was another guy who was, I think, a little lighter in weight, and I think this time Steve actually had some sparring. There was actually Curtis. Damn, I cannot remember. Can't get his name out. He got stopped by Triple G a little while back. He was he was doing really
Curtis
good.
Stevens.
Yes, I could not remember his name. Curtis Stevens. And then there was another, his boy, who was up there, who also was a really, really talented boxer, but he never. I don't think he really continued. I forget what his name was, but there was a lot more people at this camp, and it was a lot more fun. You know what I mean? It was a lot more. First, believe me, the first time we went up there, we were like, yo, I can't do this. Like I'm thinking about just like trying to find a way never to have to do something like this again. But we end up getting up there this time. Now, granted, the water issue is still there. So we still got to deal with that with the shower. But then there was this other fighter, for whatever reason, he was trying to make weight. And he always, I shouldn't even say this. I can't remember his name, so there's no way I'm going to make him feel bad about it. He would always smell like, smell like the bathroom.
The bathroom.
The bathroom and mouthwash. I don't know what the hell he was. And he would always eat these rice cakes. And I'm sitting there and we looking at him like, damn, dog. And we like, I wish you could eat, you know what I mean? Eat something else because it's just like you're suffering up here with us. You know what I'm saying? So, but he just, and then he also, and this was when we were always cutting our hair because, like I said, we didn't really have a lot of free time, a lot of time to go to different places, and all we were doing was training. So we had to figure out a way to get haircuts. Plus, we didn't trust the barbers in Philly because we didn't really know anybody. So we could start cutting our own hair. So the guy was an African guy, and he somehow made his hair like cut a special way to make it like it was a crown. And he was literally, everything was bald except for this crown he put around the. I could not make this up.
A crown of hair.
A crown of hair. No bullshit. I swear I'm not making this up. And because Steve was cutting his hair while we were up there, I didn't cut mine. I didn't have to cut mine because I cut mine when we were home. Steve was like, we had clippers and everything, and the guy had, well, I think we had clippers, and the guy asked like, oh, could you fix my cut because I lost my title, so I want it to be like a broken crown or something. So I'm sitting there listening to this. I can't help it. I can't help but I'm just laughing. The guy probably has no clue that I'm laughing at him, but I'm laughing at Steve because he keeps getting called in there to make adjustments to this dude's head, and I'm like, how did you get caught up in this whole situation? But it's like, whatever. We can't mate, so we got to look out for each other. Not to mention Malik Scott, and you know Malik Scott. Oh Lord, this dude always got some joke, some story, and he making fun of me. And there was some stuff. There was like, I remember we were at the table, and he was actually trying to lose weight at this point, so he couldn't. So he wasn't irritable or nothing, but he had to eat like egg whites and stuff like that all the time, and he was in salads, and he couldn't really enjoy himself. Like at that time, I was a big time meat eater, so I was a big time, I don't want to say the word meat anymore, but I was always eating stuff like that. I'm not going to say that word. And so he had to basically watch us. I mean, don't get me wrong, he would still eat protein, but he just couldn't eat it like how we were eating it. Like we had bratwurst, hot dogs, all kind of crap that we was throwing on the grill back there. But anyway, I remember one time we were watching some videos, some stuff, and we were all talking. It was me, Malik, the guy Talmadge, Steve, and we were all sitting there. And I remember we started watching this video of a previous fight I had, and we were always just watching different videos of different fights that we had or whatever. And I think because Malik always, because he's a boxing head too. Even back then, that's all showing all these old fights and different stuff like that. And so we were laughing because my dad had also had our videotape up there for some of our sparring, some other fights were in there, right? And we had started talking about the story, how tough my dad was on me. And my dad was still there at this time too, but we be talking amongst each other, and it was how hard he was on not only me but Steve and just in general. And he was like, "Yo, at one of my fights," and I said this to Malik, at one of my fights, I had fought a guy who was real tough, and his idea, his whole aim was to just make me have a hard time. It's not necessarily to make, to help to win. Like he wasn't necessarily trying to win. Like he would do stuff like put his head in my face, like headbutt me and hold my arms down, act like he was going to throw punches and just clinch, stuff like that, right? And so he made it hard, even though I won every round. The guy made it like kind of ugly and difficult. And my dad was pissed because for whatever reason, I'm supposed to get out there and stop him. Not to mention on that particular fight, I had the flu. So I'm like, I got to figure out how to keep this guy happy, please him by knocking this guy out, even when I'm sick and can't barely lift my arms. But anyway, so I get in there, I beat the guy unanimously. But I remember at the end of the fight, he rewind, and Malik rewinded this shit probably like what, I don't know, 100 times. My dad, after they announced the decision and that I won, my dad took the roll of tape that he cut off, cut my gauze and everything off, and he had like a roll of tape in his hand, like balled up tape. He took and baseball pitched that ball, like the ball of thing at me after the fight was over. And then I swear to God, it was funny as hell. I didn't think it was funny at the time because he was, chewing my head, chewing me out about how bad I performed. But I remember Malik had 100. He must have rewinded that shit 100,000 times and just kept laughing, and it's like sticking a knife in and turning it. Now, granted, I mean, I'm laughing because I can take a joke, and I understand it was at my expense, but it was just like constant. And even after that, he's like, "Yo, bring that tape out again so we can go watch that video of your dad throwing the tape at you." Like when things got like when it was like tough or whatever. Like when he had to sit there and eat egg whites and we were eating chicken and all kind of other carbs and shit that he wasn't supposed to eat. He pull that because he wanted to make me feel bad too, I guess. Pull that tape out of your dad throwing the tape at you or some shit like that. It was like this dude is horrible. And not only that, for whatever reason. Right, we're young. We're young. I mean, don't get me wrong. Malik was young too, obviously, and Malik was young too. But this guy, for whatever reason, this guy Talmadge, he always, because I'm coming up and I'm still kind of wet behind the ears in the sport and all that. So he's saying he just for some reason felt the need to attack me. You know what though, Joey? Everybody does that to me because I seem such an easy target because I don't really fight back. Unless you try to throw punches at me, but I don't really fight back with words. I don't really care to argue about stuff. It's really not really worth it. And I'll laugh at myself just as easy as somebody else would. So, I mean, I guess I'm an easy target. So for whatever reason, he always tried to bust on me or, always give me crap. And Steve, like he often does, even now, for whatever reason, because I'm not really trying to, start no show, or whatever. He always feels the need to come to the aid. He always jumps, got my back. As soon as he starts saying stuff, look at your head, because dude had a ball. Man, well, look at your head. And you probably got knocked out by this guy because you just can't fight. He always had to, not necessarily in a too much of a negative way all the time, but he was getting back with him. And don't get me wrong, every once in a while I would get back with the guy, but it's just like those type of things when you're around somebody so much and you get to know them. And you see what their demeanor's like, and that's what a lot of people see with me. They always try to take little stabs at me and little stuff like that. But anyway, that was just some of the little stuff that went on, between us in the camp. And that was the camp, like I told you earlier, that Monty was getting ready for Dominic Gwynn. And we also had side bets in the back, talk about what we thought was going to happen. Because at this time, Dominic Gwynn was a killer. Everybody was like, Dominic Gwynn is going to be that dude. And I was like, damn, if I ever have to fight him, I don't know what I'm going to do type stuff. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And we were sitting there talking, even Malik. And Malik's, Monty's a friend of Monty, but also Malik was a friend of Dominic Gwynn's because they were on the Olympic team or something at some point, or they were in the nationals and all that together because they were both of them were big time amateurs at one point. And he was like, man, I don't know, man. I think Dominic might get him, but I don't want to say nothing because I'm in the camp with the guy, and then I would say, I don't know, man. I think he might get him too. And then, we're just talking. We don't know what might happen, and we're in Monty's camp, and I'm like, man, I really hope he wins. You know what I mean? But I just don't know because this guy Dominic Gwynn looks like a killer, and of course, fight actually comes up, and I don't know what it was. Maybe Monty just had what he needed for, or he had his number, so to speak, in that fight, or he just trained harder, or he was better than we expected him to be. Or maybe we were better, because I remember doing so well with Monty in camp that I'm just sitting there thinking man, Dominic Gwynn's such a killer. I just can't imagine, me being able to, sometimes it gets like that at times. You're always confident, fighters are always confident and everything. Don't get me wrong, but they would be lying if they said there wasn't a fighter that they saw and they were like, yo, I don't know, man. This guy looks like he's going to be tough. If I think it's like looking at Mike Tyson. I'm not saying that's exactly what the situation is like, but it's like looking at Mike Tyson. Trust me, most people look at Mike Tyson, they like, yo, I don't know what I would do if Mike was coming at me. You know what I'm saying? So, so I was thinking about that with him, and I'm just sitting there thinking if I was doing so well with Monty, I just can't imagine, Monte being able to beat him, but with Monte, he was a pretty good puncher. No, more than a pretty good puncher, a really good puncher. Monte Barrett had a heart as big as his body. Like he was all heart. Like he cared nothing about what this dude was supposed to be or how good he was, and he had the attitude to win. And when he got in there, he showed it because he shut me up, and I'm on the couch. I think I was at a friend's house cheering him on, like, damn, bro, this dude actually beating Dominic Gwynn. And I remember it was a majority decision too, and I think it was ridiculous that it was a majority decision. I think it should have been an easy unanimous decision. It was probably 8-4, 9-3. 9-3 is probably more accurate in that fight. But anyway, there was also, and I know I'm kind of going in circles or a little like kind of, back and forth, but I remember there was another situation that happened during this camp, and it has to do with sparring. This one day, and I haven't seen something like this in a long time. Besides when I was up there with Tyson and Peter and all the guys, is we would have those big jam sessions with a whole bunch of good fighters in the gym, right? Well, this one time up there, I don't know what it was about this day or what the whole thing, what the plan was, but I swear we had to have like maybe 30 fighters in that little gym. And the gym was no bigger than maybe, I don't know. It wasn't, let's put it this way, it wasn't that big. The gym, the ring was on the floor. You know what I'm saying?
It wasn't as big as Champ's gym.
Let me see, Champ. Oh, no, not even close.
Yeah.
No way. That gym is, Champ's gym? I'm trying to think.
Champ's gym is Ant's gym, isn't it?
Oh, you talking about Ant's? Oh, no, not even.
Yeah,
man, it wasn't
even
gym. Third. That's a huge gym. It wasn't even.
Wait, that is it's called Champ's gym, right?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, it was called Champs, yeah. But look, it wasn't even a strip of that. It was like it was like a garage.
Wait, how does it compare to I don't want to go into names, but to the gym that you took me to, that we did a little bit of work in, that gym there in the basement.
Which one? Oh, man.
Similar size?
That gym is probably a little bit about that size. But it was nowhere near as nice. Not the weight portion. I don't want you to get confused and say, oh, no, it was. I'm talking about just the gym, the boxing.
Just the boxing part, yeah.
Just the boxing part is probably the same size, maybe a little bit bigger, bigger. But I'm not saying that the gym was ugly or not good or not clean. It was fine. It was made for rough and tough type situation. But we had 30 guys, 30 maybe more of fighters, like real dudes on the rise in there. Like Curtis Stevens was in there. The other welterweight I was talking about was in there. I don't want to call out the wrong names. I can't remember who else was in there as far as the lighter weight guys, but I think there were some lighter weight guys in there too. But it was mad heavyweights in there. I remember one of the dudes that I really, really, really respected at this time. I don't know if you'll know this guy. I don't know this name, but his name was Lawrence Claybay. You ever heard of Lawrence Claybay? He was like an Olympic. I don't know if he was a medalist. I can't remember for sure. He had actually beat. Did he beat Vladimir or Vitaly in the Olympics? Or not, maybe not in the Olympics, but not in the Olympics, but in like a world championship. I can't remember. I know he was like one of the world champions, like a world championship level guy in the amateurs. And when he turned pro, his issue was like, of course, conditioning and training. He didn't really.
Lost to Vlad in the Olympics.
Right, he lost to Vlad, and was that in the finals? I think it was.
No, I don't think so.
Okay, well, he was like I know he was an Olympian, but I know he beat somebody of note at one point. And maybe not in the Olympics, but in the World Championships or something like that. I can't remember. But anyway, and I remember seeing him, and there was this guy, and I know you're gonna know the. You heard of Clifford ATN, the Black Rhino, right?
Yeah.
Oh. All right, he fought the Black Rhino, and when I came up in Pittsburgh before I moved to Philly, there was a little bit of talk of me going down and sparring with the Rhino, and this was when he was on his way up, and the Black Rhino actually got a win over a world champion by the name of Layman Brewster, early in his career, it was on KO Nation. People don't even remember. I think I was there and watched it. Either I think so. Anyway, they were talking about me going out and sparring with the Rhino, and I was like, yo. They was talking about how, oh man, he puts that heat on. He when he starts coming forward, he don't stop throwing punches. Eddie's not gonna I was like 18, maybe I just turned 18, I just turned pro or whatever, and they was talking about me going on a camp. My dad was like, nah, because he let the hype get him, you know what I mean? Not to let me go down there and work with him. But anyway, so I go down to we're up at that camp and I see this guy, Lawrence Claybay. Now Lawrence Claybay had fought him at one point, and we seen how good and how skilled Lawrence Claybay was, right? And he was like a little guy, and at that time we like watching the smaller guys fight, not so much the heavyweights, because heavyweights not for the most part don't really show those skills, you know what I mean? Like lighter weight guys do. You know, they're a little more skillful, a little fast, you know, like pretty much, you know, not a little faster, but faster, sharper, you know, more skillful. So we respect. So if we see a heavyweight that does that kind of stuff, I was like, damn, and this guy's sharp. He has speed. He was throwing combinations. I think up to that point, this was the Rhino's toughest test, and he actually showed out. And then I remember at the end of the fight, the Rhino was throwing shots, and he just felt so, you know, under control, comfortable with him, and that he could take his punch. That this dude literally dropped his hands to his waist and let the Rhino hit him like 5 or 6 times. And after I seen that, I was like, yo, I wouldn't want to fight that dude. Fast forward to the camp. We up there. Who walks in the gym? Fucking Lawrence Claybay. I'm like, oh, man. I'm like, yo. And we went up to him and started talking to him. Like, we were, like, I'm not, you know, see, the thing is, when you meet, like, your let us say your equal, your counterpart, your guys who do what you do, there's a certain amount of respect. Now, it's not like we were starstruck, like he's a star, because the guy wasn't like, he didn't even win the fight. You know what I mean? At that point, back then, we're looking at, he was on TV, you know what I'm saying? But we still like, damn, we respect his ability. And then they told me, oh yeah, y'all gonna be sparring. And I'm like, oh man, I'm about to spar with this dude, man. What am I going to do? Like, he's fast. He probably faster than me. He probably better than me. You know, this stuff that goes through your head when you're looking at somebody like that who you really respect, right? And I remember getting in there, and I'm nervous, you know what I mean? But I'm like, I'm in here now, you know what I mean? I gotta show up, you know? So I remember the first couple shots I threw, and they all landed. I'm like, bang, bang, bang. I'm like, oh shit, I landed those. That felt kind of good. And then I'm expecting him like to turn it up, come back with a 6-piece at me. You know what I mean? And I'm like, and he threw a couple shots and I missed. I made him miss. I'm like, oh, am I really this nice? In my head, you know, you start thinking like, am I this good, or is he just that bad, or what's going on? I don't, you know, you don't really know, right? So then I throw another couple punches. And I'm like, yo, I'm hitting this dude easy. And I'm like, man, something's going to change. Something's going to happen. You know what I mean? Through the course of this sparring, that, you know, and then I think we were doing like 2 in, or like I think I did one with him, then he went out and then somebody else jumped in, then he would jump back in, and then I would come. It's something like that, right? And I was like, man, let me just get out of this round alive, basically, right? And I'm sitting there like, damn, I'm really doing this well. And then I remember just kind of doing that good the whole time. And I sparred with him some more. And it was the same thing. And I'm like, damn. And then I started looking at Steve, and then we like look at like, and he was coming over to me like, Steve, like, yo, man, you look good. You're doing this. And I'm sitting there surprised, like, I'm sitting like, yo, I'm doing this to this dude. Like, what's the deal? Like, is he just taking it easy on me? And I remember saying something like, no, you don't got to take it easy. You can go. He's like, take it easy? What you talk about me taking it easy? I'm trying. And I'm like, yo. I'm like, I thought he was taking it easy, because I'm not really expecting him to be, not saying he was easy, but to land shots on, you know what I'm saying? Like, you don't expect somebody like that to be easy to hit, you know what I'm saying? And I'm like, damn. So after the sparring, we actually start chopping it up. We start talking, and he's talking, man, you good, man. You won't be this, you won't be that. I'm surprised I never heard of you before, man. You doing well up here, man. You just keep working. And I'm sitting there like, I can't believe this dude's telling me this, and do I believe it? You know what I'm saying? And it's like, it was just a shocking experience. It's like, this is why I say for fighters, young fighters that's coming up. I mean, I don't know, what the idea is, what their trainers or their managers or whatever have in store from what they want them to do. But there's nothing like going to a professional, high level professional camp situation and learning. Like I've been in Klitschko's camp before I fought him, way before I fought him. And I've been to John Ruiz's camp. I've been to Hassan Rahman, my main man, Hassan Rahman's camp at one point. And these dudes, you learn from them. You learn how things are supposed to be run. And I remember going to Vladimir's camp and seeing how professionally ran it was, how everything was set a certain way, how they had the screen, like the videos of Calvin Brock on video playing in the gym while he's getting his hands wrapped. Him having the similar conversation with Emmanuel. This is when, God rest his soul, Emmanuel, who was there. And I'm just looking at how professionally ran that thing was, how everything was regimented properly, everything was done properly. Even with Hassan Rahman, the same thing. John Ruiz, very similar. You know what I mean? Monte Barrett's thing, it's very similar. When these dudes, you get to a certain level, that's how your camp should be run. Anytime I've had a good performance, a really good performance, it was directly due to what kind of camp I had. If I had a great camp, I had a great fight. When they say you train like you fight like you train, that's 100% accurate. Your mind is in the right place. You're completely comfortable and confident in what you've done. Even if you're not confident in your ability, you're confident in the work you put in. You understand what I'm saying? So me going to these camps, and I'm just going to talk about those two at this point. Maybe later on we'll be able to talk about some other ones and some other things that I experienced with throughout that. But these types of things are extremely important for fighters to experience and to see what people that are slightly above them or in the next level and next tier of their career, and where they're at, how it's going to be and how it's going to look. And then to learn from these guys like Monte Barrett, like Vladimir Klitschko, like Tyson Fury, even though I was older than him and I had all these experiences before I even met him that he didn't even have, but still you see how these things are run. You know what I'm saying? You think and that's another thing. You look at Peter Fury's camp, and I'm gonna say this. I don't want to get too much into what we did there because we're gonna do that at a later time. Mm-hmm. But his camp was run spot on everything. He had everything down to the ounce, from what we're eating to what you should have. Every bit. He was like a scientist when it comes to this stuff. Whether he knew it before I got there or not, I couldn't tell. You know what I'm saying? He knew he had everything in place. Yeah. We had to train at a certain time. We had to run at a certain time. We had to lift at a certain time. We had to eat at a certain time. We had to have a certain amount of scoops in our shakes, and you know what I mean. Like everything was regimented, and that's the difference between average and great. You know what I'm saying? That's just it. And these type of situations and these types of stories need to be told. And then obviously there's the other side of the sport that I don't really want to get into too much, but that also needs to be told because people need to see what's coming down the road. You know what I mean? On the business aspect of this whole thing too.
And, again, you've mentioned there about the two camps with Monte Barrett. Let me identify, Eddie, which part of your career is this, if you can remember back? So again, we're going to do it like a timeline. Obviously, next week or the week after, whenever you come back, we'll go on. We'll go chronologically, is what I'm saying. So what part of your career have we got up to there?
We might have to do a prequel at some point, but no, this was like I had been in Pittsburgh. I first turned pro in Pittsburgh, so this was when I was in Philadelphia. This was like the first going into the second year of me being in Philly. And, I had some fights, some small town fights in Philly up to that point. But that was my first major camp that I wanted to put on. There was another camp too that I had gone to a little after. And I think that was when I went down to Buddy McGirt's camp down in Vero. But these were the first two camps, like solid camps. And it was in isolation. And there was a couple other things that went on in that camp that I really get into, but I wanted to keep it kind of streamlined to what we were talking about. And crazy story from a leak. But anyway, yeah. But but that was around that time. Like I was still in the second year or so of my pro career, I want to say.
Okay, so this is okay, only 2 years in. So this is around about the same sort of time you boxed the likes of you boxed a guy called Dave Chappelle.
Yes, I did. I know you laughed and went up straight up 100%. And I forget who somebody was asking. I think I was talking to my man Ant, and he is like, "Yo, Dave Chappelle." I was like, "Yeah, man,
Yeah,
that was his name."
You boxed him, you beat him, then you gave him an immediate rematch.
Yeah, because, and I'm gonna tell you a little small part of that was the first fight. People were kind of questioning because of where it was, because it was in Homewood. I know as I say Homewood, PA, or Pittsburgh, PA. Basically down the road from my house, because it was in the Coliseum.
That's
but
right, yeah.
It's not, it's not that. The guy was tough. He was undefeated. He was 4-0 at the time, fresh out of jail, strong, heavy hands. Just like, he wasn't Dave Chappelle, the comedian, for sure. You couldn't get him mixed up with that. But he was, but he was still raw. He didn't, even though he, obviously he had boxed before he went in. When he got out, he had a couple of knockouts. I think he had one knockout when I fought him. But I remember he's just a strong guy. And I remember after the fight was over, he put his hand on the back of my head, put his hand on my head. I was like, God, this dude his hand is heavy as a 50-pound weight. I'm like, what did he put his hand on my head like that? But I ain't gonna say that at that point. I'm already exhausted anyway from the fight. But anyway, then a lot of people were questioning. Not a lot of people. There was a few people questioning the fight. And I remember watching the video of the fight, and I'm like, yo, what are they questioning? I won it was an 8-round fight. I won 5 or 6 rounds of the 8 rounds. You know what I mean? It was just that when you get your eyes conditioned to see something, where you're used to somebody who's dominating up to that point, you're expecting to see that. And you don't see that in a fight. Like, if he's not dominating every single round and almost knocking the guy out, they're going to look, oh, he lost it. And that's what some of these guys were. And there was a guy from Philly, was living in Pittsburgh at the time. His name was Salim. He came to the barbershop and was talking about it after, and talk about how, man, I feel like, they gave you a hometown decision. I'm like, yeah, all right, man, whatever. And he was talking about this other guy, this from the area, by the name of Raquan Kimbrough, who is really talented, and did a lot of good things as an amateur, but just wasn't ever really turned the corner as a pro. But he was talking about how great he was, and he was a lighter fighter, real sharp and fast, and he just was talking so much smack about me and how I didn't do this and how I didn't do that and how I need this help and I need that help, So
You ran it back. Ran it back at the Blue Horizon.
I felt it. Yes, and I felt it, and that was when I started to get with Rob. And it's funny enough, that was the fight that I basically auditioned for Big Rob to look at me in the fight, and he saw that fight and was like, man, this dude is good, man. This guy got hands like. He may not be Ali, but he got hand speed like it, and he got this like it. And at that time, I was like when I was younger, I don't know, maybe 18, 19. And, I was really sharp, but just not where I needed to be. I needed to be in better shape. I needed, all these little things. And then I'm fighting in front. Everybody knows it's hard to fight in front of the hometown people. Mm-hmm. It's really hard. There's a lot of added pressure on that. But anyway, the second fight, I fight him at the Blue, and this fight was one of the only times that I remember being really hurt in a fight. Nobody knew it though. He threw a haymaker with it must have made his eyes. It might have had his eyes closed when he threw it, and caught me flush. Boom! And I remember seeing nothing but lights, colors, nothing. Blinded for a split second, and immediately the bell rang.
Dave Chappelle.
And I remember yes, Dave Chappelle, not the actor comedian, but this other guy. But he hits me, and I'm like, oh, the hell? And I remember the bell rang, and as soon as the bell rang, it's almost like something ran off in my head, and my vision cleared up. Everything was good, and I turned around, walked back to the corner. Nobody knew. I didn't say nothing about it because I didn't want to tell my dad that. I didn't want to say anything. And then I went back out the next.
Tape for that, man.
Huh?
He would have hit you with some tape.
He would have definitely hit me with something. Maybe a bat. Who knows? But anyway, after that, he goes. The guy, I go back out after that round, and I beat him half to death. I tried to beat him to death. You know what I mean? I almost stopped him at a couple points, but it was like I felt the need, and not just me. Rob, it was his opportunity. He's like, let me see this guy. this guy gave you a little bit of a tough fight. You know what? We'll give him another opportunity to get you back. You know what I mean? If he can beat you, let's see what happens. And he gave him the opportunity. I almost got him out of there. But shit, he almost got me out of there. Nobody even knew it. But who knows? But anyway, but that kind of situation, you know, at that time, it's like this is the gradual process, man. This is what fighters have to go through. Those camps I talked about, these early fights, all of this stuff is stuff that regular people who watch boxing and say, oh, I think this and oh, I think that, when they're looking at the surface and, you know, the surface area of what's going on here, it's like, nah, there's a lot more to this than just these punches being thrown here. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. But like I say, you know, that was around about the time that you were in those two camps with Monte Barrett. So around about the 2002 mark, you reckon, Eddie? Looking back now,
well, probably a little bit later. Maybe 03. It was a little past 3.
Okay.
A little. No, I say a little past 3. It was like. Let me see. Yeah, it was like when I first got up there.
This would be much easier. Which fight? The second camp, obviously we spoke about the first camp and the second camp, but which fight, when you were brought in for camp the second time for Monte Barrett, who was he preparing for?
Who was Monte Barrett preparing for the second time?
Yeah,
Dominic Gwynn.
Okay,
that was the one where
that's how we'll get the
yeah, that was the second camp.
Right. So
and you know what? What was that? What year was that?
That was in 04. Yeah, 04. March 04. So that's where we are. So back that 100%. kind of time.
Yep.
Yeah, that's when you were boxing. Your next fight would be Marcus Road. So yeah, we'll pause it there.
Yeah, Marcus Roady. Yeah. I remember that.
We'll pause it there. Yeah. We'll pick it up, and then of course, you know, next week or whatever, we'll get to those other camps and we'll go through some of these other fights, because I liked that little story there about Dave Chappelle in the first and second fight. That's a story that you've probably never even spoke about that, you know, before.
No, probably not. And people don't really know it. And like I said, there was not a lot of people that knew that I got caught with a shot at I don't know if it was the end of the first round. Boom!
That could have been the end, man.
You know what? I was in such great shape because that's all we did. You know, that's all we did. So when I came, a snap of a finger, boom, I was back. Like I said, the bell rang, boom. I turned back toward the corner, went back and sat down like nothing happened. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure.
So let's just hope. I'm hoping. Well, no, there's no hoping and no hoping necessary. I made it. I'm here. You know what I mean? I didn't lose that fight, thank God.
Okay, well there you go. That has been this week's story time with Eddie, or whatever we called it, the lockdown knockdown again.
Knockdown, I like.
I should probably put a poll out on Twitter, and someone can get, you know, people can get their votes in, and you know, they can let us know. They can vote for what it should be called, or alternatively send in a suggestion. We're open to suggestions. Whoever comes up with the best one, they'll get credit for it, and we'll use it from the next time we do this onwards. So yeah, that's been this week's story time with Eddie, and it's now time to welcome our sole guest on this week's podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the former IBF Junior-Middleweight world champion. It is, of course, Mr. Raul Marquez. Raul, welcome to the show, my friend.
Well, thank you. Thanks for the invite, and I'm finally we get together and we're able to talk. You know, I know it took a couple of weeks and for us to figure out stuff, but I'm glad that we're on the phone now.
Absolutely, I echo that. So Raul, first things first, I quite often start with this question really, when doing these types of interviews. How did you first get into boxing? What's your earliest memory?
Well, I mean, I got a lot of memories, of course, but I'll start from the beginning. My father was always a big boxing fan in Mexico, right? And he used to collect the Ring Mundial, which is a ring magazine called Ring Mundial. Back in the late 60s, early 70s, it was a magazine called Ring Mundial in Mexico, or it was worldwide. Not too sure about that, but he was a big boxing fan. He used to follow all the Mexican fighters back then, Carlos Zárate, Ruben Olivares. He just used to watch boxing, and he was a fan of boxing, a fanatic. And, when I was born in Mexico in 1971. Actually, when I came out of my mom's womb, my dad says that I was throwing punches, and he said, man, I'm going to make this guy a champion. I'm going to make this guy a boxer. So, that's the story that my dad says. And, I sure enough, I started boxing when I was 7 years old here in Houston, Texas, because we moved to Houston. From Mexico, went to Chicago, and then Chicago, Illinois, went to Houston, Texas. And that's when I started boxing at PABA, Boxing Academy, Progressive Amateur Boxing Association with Reverend Ray Martin. And before we joined the boxing gym, my dad, he filled up an army bag, a green army bag. He filled it up with sawdust, okay? And that was my heavy bag. And he used to teach me what he could, and I used to hit the heavy bag. And, that's what I remember, in Northside Houston. And then, of course, we joined, the boxing gym.
Excellent.
After that.
Excellent.
Yes, sir.
Excellent. I love hearing these little stories of how it all began. There's some real interesting ones.
Right.
And obviously you mentioned there, you were born in Mexico. At what point did you move to the States? You mentioned you were in the States when you were 7 when you first started. At what age were you when you first made the trip?
I want to say that I was about 2 or 3 years old when we moved to Chicago, Illinois. Wow. My dad had already been working in Chicago as an illegal alien. Like in, I want to say 1968, 69, he was gathering money to marry my mom, and come back to Mexico and marry my mom. So, yeah, he had already been working in Chicago. So he gathered money, whatever money he had to gather, make to have a wedding and marry my mom. And then they got married in 1970, in October 1970. Actually, on Halloween Day, October 31st. October 31st, all right? And then I was born in August 1971. We lived in Mexico in Valle Hermoso, Tamaulipas, a small town in the border of right here, Texas, in Bronzeville, Texas, and Matamoros. And then maybe an hour from Matamoros is Valle Hermoso. It's a small little town, agricultural town. That's the way they make money there. And they plant, cornfields and, sorghum and stuff like that. So, yeah, we were in Mexico maybe for 2 years living there. And then we moved to Chicago, Illinois. And my youngest brother, Aldo, was born there. And that helped us get our green card, because my brother was born there in 1973 in Chicago. And then, Chicago was too cold for us. So we moved down to Houston, Texas. Then my sister Veronica was born here. And that's when I started boxing at the age of 7 in the garage. And then I had my first amateur fight when I was 8 years old.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow. And like I say, you were a very successful amateur. Obviously, you earned a bronze medal in the Amateur World Games. Mm-hmm. And then also you managed to box in the 1992 Olympic Games in Barcelona.
Yes.
What was your highlight moment in the amateurs, Raul?
Well, I had a lot of highlight moments, just making the Olympic team, in the Olympic trials here in the United States. I had to beat a lot of good guys. I beat some good guys to make the Olympic team. I beat Robert Allen, who fought Bernard Hopkins twice. He was a pretty good middleweight in the pros. Robert Allen, you can look him up. I beat Lonnie Bradley, who was a WBO champion, middleweight champion from New York. And I beat Antoine Eccles, who also was a pretty good, decent fighter as a pro. I beat them 3 to make the Olympic team. But I won a lot of national titles. I won every tournament you could think of in the amateurs, here in the United States. And then, but of course, obviously the peak of it, has to be making the Olympic team. Making the 1992 Olympic team was it was memorable. Competing in the Olympics and representing the United States was awesome. It's something that I'm never going to forget. And even though I lost in the quarterfinals, I had 3 fights. I lost in the quarterfinals to Orphan Dalibas, who went on to win a silver medal. And I still thought I won the fight. It was a close fight. They had the new computer scoring system. I literally lost the fight in the second half of the 3rd round. I was ahead going into the 3rd round, and then all of a sudden it was beep, 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 and I lost I want to say 17-12 or something like that. But my point is, being in the Olympic team and representing the United States, it was the peak, the top of, that's the furthest you could get. Of course, it would have been great if I would have won a bronze medal, a silver medal, or a gold medal. And it does hurt that I didn't medal. I was very close. I won 2 fights, lost in the quarterfinals. And, I always say the story. The guy that beat me went out to the finals and got a silver medal, Orphan de Libas. And the guy that won the gold medal, Juan Lemus, I had beat 3 months before the Olympics at the World Challenge. And, the World Challenge is a thing where the world champion fights the number one contender. And I was the number one contender. Juan Lemus was the world champion. And I beat him. I beat him 3 months before we went to the Olympics at the World Challenge. And, 3 months later, he wins the gold medal. And that's the way it went.
And obviously, you turned pro in October 1992. It took you 4.5 years to get a world title shot. Obviously, you compiled a record of 25-0 with 18 KOs during that 25-fight win streak. You boxed the likes of, it's a strange name to bring up, I guess, but Reggie Strickland. Reggie is, one of the most famous journeymen in boxing.
Right.
He retired in 2005 with a record of 66 wins and 276 losses.
Right. He fought everybody.
Yeah, of course.
He fought everybody.
Of course, but he only got stopped on 26 occasions. You stopped him in the first round. Do you remember much about that fight, Raul?
Yeah, I hit him. Yeah, I hit him. I hit him with a good left hand and then a right hook, and that was it. Actually, it was I fought him. It's crazy. I fought him in a high school gym outside of Chicago, Illinois. I forgot the name of I believe it was in Illinois. And Andrew Galata was the main event who fought on that card, I believe. But if I remember right, but that's all I remember from that fight. But I know for sure I hit him with a left hand, right hook, and that was the end of it.
And like I say, he really did go on to box everyone. You also boxed Alex Rios, and you stopped him in one round. Obviously, after that, Rios went on to box Terry Norris for the IBF and WBC world titles. You beat Rios quicker than Norris did. And also, of course, you shut out former WBC world champion Jorge Vaca on points over 10. Do you remember much about that one? It was obviously at the MGM Grand on the undercard of Mora and Foreman.
Yeah, I do remember that fight. It was I really wanted to knock out Jorge Vaca, but at that point, I wasn't. I don't know how many fights did I have at that point. I don't remember how many fights, but I know I wasn't a seasoned veteran. Like Vaca had been an ex-world champion. He was a veteran. He was on his way out. Obviously, he had fought a lot of big names. He was a world champion, but he was still wise. He knew how to survive, and I wanted to knock him out. And I learned a lot from that fight, experience-wise, because I couldn't get him out of there. I tried so hard to get him out of there, but maybe I was trying too hard. I was trying to land that one big punch, and that was the mistake. That's the mistakes you make when you're coming up. You want to kill everybody with one shot. You want to knock them out, but it was a good experience. I won the fight unanimously, and it was a good win for me.
It certainly was. And then, of course, let's jump forward to the big one. Like I say, April 12th, 1997 for the vacant IBF Junior-Middleweight world title. You against Anthony Stevens at the Tropicana Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas. Talk us through that fight and obviously the feeling that came over you to become a world champion that night.
Well, I had signed with Top Rank. I signed, I changed promoters, but when I came out of the Olympics, I signed with Main Events. Back then, Lou Duva was big with Evander Holyfield, Pernell Whitaker, all them guys, Meldrick Taylor. And, we things didn't work out, so I went with Top Rank, and I believe I had 2 fights with Top Rank, 2 fights, and then I fought for the vacant IBF title against Anthony Stevens. Anthony Stevens was he was supposed to fight, I believe, he fought Felix Trinidad, who gave him a really good fight. And I believe Anthony Stevens, no, the champion at that point, I believe was Terry Norris, had the titles. But Terry Norris decided not to fight me because he was supposed to fight Oscar De La Hoya. But that never happened because then he loses the title. But that, we'll talk about that. So I ended up fighting for the vacant title against Anthony Stevens on ABC Wild Water Sports. That same night, I fought during the day, and that same night, that's when Oscar De La Hoya fought Pernell Whitaker at the Thomas & Mack Center that same day, same night. So, yeah, I trained really hard for that fight. I know Anthony Stevens was a seasoned veteran. He had fought some good names, fought Felix Trinidad, got stopped by Trinidad late. And what I remember from that fight is, I trained hard. My style. I took it to him. I was aggressive. And it was a good win for me. Like I stopped him in 9 rounds. He was a very durable guy, very experienced, and it was huge for me because I became a world champion. Finally, that's what I had been looking for after my amateur career, and I got to become the IBF champion.
And obviously you mentioned, your father said you came out of the womb punching. He wanted to make you a champion. You became a champion. Was that always your dream as a kid as well as obviously your father's for you?
Absolutely. When I started boxing at first, when I was younger, it was a hobby. But then, once I won my first national title, junior Olympic title when I was 15, I said, man, I want to make the Olympic team one day. And then maybe after that, turn pro and become a world champion. And I could literally say that I accomplished my dreams. I was an Olympian. I was a world champion. I had some good fights. I can't complain. I'm very satisfied.
And also, as you mentioned, Anthony Stevens, he was a tough guy. You became the quickest man to stop him. And as you mentioned, he boxed Felix Trinidad. He had Trinidad down in that fight as well, we forget. And, he'd even boxed the likes of Aaron Davis and Livingston
right.
of course. Now, in your first offence, you boxed Romallis Ellis. Now, Ellis could punch, You became the only man to stop him at that point. You got him out in the 4th round. What do you remember about that day there? I think it was the day after Independence Day, was it? I believe.
Yeah, it was during Independence Day. Yeah, that fight was on ABC, where I watched sports too here in the United States, and I knew Romallis Ellis was going to be tough because he won a bronze medal in the '88 Olympics. He was an '88 Olympic team member for USA, got a bronze medal, and he was durable. And I was just a bigger man, the stronger man. I took it to him. I felt right away that every point when I would hit him, I would put hurt in him, so it was just a matter of time. And it took me I believe 4 rounds to get him out of there, 4 or 5 rounds. I stopped him. I dropped him. He got back up and I jumped on him, and the referee stopped the fight. And that was my first title defense.
Yeah. And that was a brilliant win. Your second defense took place at the Thomas and Mack Center in Las Vegas. And, the whole show, the whole card was stacked with a crazy bunch of names. Obviously, David Diaz, Butterbean, Lucia Riker, Paul Spadafora, Paulie Ayala, Hector Camacho, Oscar De La Hoya, and obviously not to mention yourself, and obviously your opponent that night, the eventual WBC world champion Keith Mullings.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
The fight ends in a split decision over 12. Talk to me about that fight there, a tricky one.
Tough fight. We were back and forth. They were going to change opponents on me. Making no excuses. Anyways, I ended up fighting Keith Mullings, and I knew Keith Mullings from the Olympic trials. He fought in the Olympic trials. He was a good amateur. He was in the Army veteran. He had a good amateur background, and I knew he was durable. The guy was tough, man. I really believe that I pulled off the fight. It was gutsy. I mean, I was banged up. I was cut up, and I won a split decision. It was a close fight. I can't complain. I mean, I got to tell you, it was a close fight, but I feel that I pulled it out. I was the champion. I feel I did more in the later rounds towards the end. I felt maybe Keith Mullings, he stepped off the gas, and I thought I took the lead. So, that's why I got the decision. But he was a tough opponent.
Yeah, and like I say, only less than 3 months later, he'd go on to knock out Terry Norris. So incredible stuff.
Exactly.
He was
on the same card. Yeah, on the same card when I lost the title to your boy Campas, and that was, 3 months later. You learn so much in boxing. At that point in our life, me and my dad were new. If we knew what we knew now, it would have been different. I received over, I want to say 70-some stitches in the Keith Mullings fight, right? And everybody knows about boxing. I took that fight too early with Yuri Boy Campas. I mean, 3 months later, I'm already in camp again and fighting a knockout artist in Yuri Boy Campas. It was crazy, but I was trying to prove myself. I had pressure from the promoter, that possibly if I win that fight against Yuri Boy Campas, I might be able to fight Oscar, my Olympic roommate, the following year. And I was like, wow, I mean, that's a great opportunity. That's good. That'll be a great payday too, So, I think the inexperience, on the business side of it, I felt like we shouldn't have took that fight with Yuri Boy Campas so early. We should have waited at least 6 months to heel right from the Keith Mullins fight, things would have been different. You know, when the referee stopped the fight in the 8th or 9th round, whatever round it was, the fight was even. You know, one judge had it for me, one judge had it for him, one judge had it even. But, you know, I just couldn't continue, man. My face just swelled up really bad. And, you know, the doctor told me, the plastic surgeon told me, like, you know, my face looked fine from the outside, but from the inside, it was still traumatized. That's the word he used. Traumatized from the Keith Mullins fight. It wasn't healed right. And I should have waited like 6 months to heal right from that fight. But, you know, hey, that's boxing, you know. And back then, you know, like to us, me and my father, it wasn't so much business. I wanted to fight the best to be the best. You know, that was my mentality back when I was a professional fighter. I wanted to fight the best. At my time, you know, I was trying to fight Oscar. I was trying to fight Fernando Vargas. I tried to fight about Terry Norris. I wanted to fight everybody because I wanted to fight the best of my era. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. And you know, like I say, it was a shame the way the fight ended because, as you mentioned, it was super close on the cards.
Yes.
You know, you bounced back with 2 wins over Jose Flores, an eventual world title challenger, and Michael Lerma. You got the rounds in. You beat them both unanimously over 10, and then you obviously attempt to win back your old title July 17th, 1999 in Nevada. Tell us about that night there, Raul.
Well, I wanted to fight the best to be the best. And at that point, you know, Fernando Vargas was the IBF champion, young Fernando Vargas. And if I wanted to become world champion again, that's who I had to beat, you know. But I fought I believe I fought one of the best Fernando Vargas. He knows about it because we talk about it when we see each other at different tournaments because he brings his kids to national tournaments. And I have my son that boxes and we go to national tournaments too. So we run into each other. But Fernando was like really sharp, you know, he was strong and I wasn't successful in that fight. You know, he stopped me in 11 rounds. You know, like I said, he was very elusive, very sharp, you know, and he beat me. He stopped me and, you know, he showed, you know, why he was a champion.
And obviously after that fight, you're out of the ring for 19 months before returning to fight. What kept you out of the ring that long, Raul?
Well, I mean, you know, every time I try to fight the best, or, you know, you get that, you know, okay, I lost. Oh, I'm going to retire. So then I believe at that point, I got the bug to get back in it again. So I worked myself back up to, you know, fought a couple of tune-up fights. And then I believe that's when I got the Shane Mosley fight, I believe, right?
Yeah. Obviously, yeah. You boxed Rob Bleakley. I think you stopped him in 5. Then, then I think you had 2 more fights in 2001. Tony Menifee and Roberto Barro. Then you beat Anthony Brooks in March 2002, and then February 8th, 2003, almost a year out the ring before the Shane Mosley fight came around at the Mandalay Bay.
Yeah, I just had, you know, I had a couple of tune-up fights. I got the bug to get back. Let's see what could happen. I have a name. And, you know, I remember Oscar De La Hoya moving up to 154 and Shane Mosley moved up to 154. We fought at 154. So I believe, you know, I think from what I remember, Oscar wanted Shane to fight somebody, a name or an ex-world champion at 154 so they could meet each other again because Shane had already beat Oscar and the year before. So I fought Shane in February of 2002, I believe, right? Or 2003. Okay. And I made the fight myself. I remember I called Shane, hey, let's fight. I'm the guy that you need to fight. You know, I'm Mexican. I have a name. I'm tough. I'm going to give, you know. So that's how that fight happened, man. That's how that fight happened. He's like, okay, yeah, let's do it, blah, blah, blah. Unfortunately, you saw the fight, how it happened. I mean, what happened, you know, we banged heads. I can't blame Shane. At that point, I blame Shane. I can't blame him or I can't blame myself. You know, lefty, righty, whatever. We banged heads. He's shorter. I believe that the fight was really going to get good. You know, if you've seen the fight on YouTube, I really believe that the fight was – we'll never know, man. And Shane realized, you know, I knew Shane from the amateurs. Shane never, you know, wasn't an elite amateur like I was. He was always a smaller guy. But, you know, he made it a lot bigger in the pros, you know. That's just the way it is. But what can I say about that fight, man? I wish it wouldn't have ended that way. Like my game was to take him into the later rounds. If you see the 3 rounds, he won. I knew that I was going to lose the first couple of rounds, but if you see every time I hit Shane, I was just stronger, man, and he would hold me like a crab, So the thing is, I wanted to take him into the later rounds and see what was going to happen. Too bad we'll never know, but the fight ended no contest because we banged heads, and that's what happened.
Yeah, you banged.
And then he beat Oscar, that same year in September of that year.
Yeah.
He beat Oscar.
Yeah, but no, you banged heads a few times. Obviously, you were cut over both eyes. I didn't think you lost the first couple rounds, to be honest. I gave him the first, I gave you the second, and the third was up for grabs, really. It was quite close.
Well, thank you. I mean, I'll let you say that, man, but I know the TV people had Shane ahead the 3 rounds, and I didn't see it like that, but I'm telling you, that fight was going to get good, man. That fight, and Shane knows it too. But look, we'll be 60 years old. I'll be 70 years old, and I'll still be talking about it. Oh, I want that rematch. I wish that fight could happen again because I'm telling you, it was going to get interesting. It was going to get interesting, man. My power and my size was too much for Shane, and like honestly, like. I don't know if it's a mental thing, but I knew Shane from the amateurs. Like I said, we grew up together. We all came up together in the amateurs. He would lose to like Vernon Forrest. I believe he fought Stevie Johnson. He won a couple of national titles, but again, he never was a top elite amateur. So and then the pros, he was blessed and he made it big, made a lot of money, etc. But I was just too big and strong for him, and that was my mind. And you could see it, in the 3rd round, I was like, first round, okay. 2nd round, I'm like, damn, he's really not that. I mean, I didn't feel like he was that. He's fast, but I'm seeing his shots, like I'm blocking some, I'm catching some. He's catching me too. I'm hitting him. I hit him. He grabs me. The 3rd round, I was like, man, it's on. I was putting more pressure. And maybe I rushed too much, and that's why we banged heads, but again, not making any excuses. I mean, it's a no contest. Shane's a good guy. We're friends. When we see each other, we have a lot of respect for each other. I mean, he's a great guy.
Yeah, for sure. But no, I agree. I believe you. I think the fight would have been very interesting if we got to see it play out. Was there ever any talks of doing that fight again at any point? Nah,
man. I wanted the rematch so bad, but business-wise, why would he was the next fight he fought Oscar and made 5 or 6 mils. So it when he fought me, he probably made like a mil and a half or something like that. So why would he take that risk? Why would he take that risk? There was no need to. The whole thing was that he needed to fight some guy like me to get to that rematch with Oscar again, even though he had beat Oscar. But, Oscar was a star and Oscar calls the shot. So, and, I know that they even had a problem. Like, I know Shane wanted a certain amount of money, and Oscar was like, no, well, you didn't look that good with Raul, so we're not going to pay you that much. We're going to pay you $5 or $6 million or something like that, which is still good at that point, But I heard, from what I hear, I think Shane wanted more. But hey, like I said, Shane had a great career. He's a Hall of Famer, and I was blessed to be in the ring with him.
Absolutely. And after that, you returned back to the ring 8 months later. You decided to move up to middleweight. You were back with a KO, winning 4 rounds over Humberto Aranda before taking on an undefeated young Jermain Taylor in June 2004. Of course, your corner pulled you out in round 9. What do you remember from that night there, Raul?
Well, obviously middleweight was. Them guys are some big guys, man. Jermain Taylor, I'm telling you that a lot of them guys, they're big. It wasn't really It wasn't my weight. My weight was 154. That was my weight. I was a good, decent sized 154 junior middleweight. Middleweight, I'm gonna be honest with you. I did it. The opportunity was there. Jermain Taylor was young and coming up. Maybe I was thinking maybe I could surprise him, but no, it didn't. It didn't happen that way, man. He was just too big and too strong for me, and he stopped me.
And then, of course, after that, you was almost out the ring for 2 years. I think 22 months. Was that a period where you perhaps thought about walking away, as you said earlier on?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. But then I saw Jermain beat Bernard Hopkins. I'm like, man, I'm coming back. He beat Bernard Hopkins. I'm coming back. And I still have a name. I could make some money. Why not? At that point, I was starting to look more at the business part of it too, because as a fighter, you make, you become a champion, you make money, as a champion, and then after that you could also make money as your name. You're an ex-champion, and I was like, why not? Why not? So I wasn't and I just love the sport, man. I was in good shape. I kept my body in shape, mentally. I'm fine. I'm still, I was fine back then. I'm fine now. I've been around so many fighters, man, and that are retired now, and when they've been hit too much and they have the effects of boxing. So, I'm like, I'm gonna give it another try, and I believe that's when I worked myself up to fight Giovanni Lorenzo for the middleweight, not unification, but eliminator to fight Arthur Abraham.
Yeah, we'll get to that in just a sec. You returned with a good win streak, a 5-fight win streak, all by knockout, including a win over former world title challenger Jonathan Korn. You stopped him in a round. Before boxing former world champion Bronco McCart, a majority draw. Did you feel you did enough to win that night? I think you did.
That wasn't a draw, man. Let me tell you what happened. I don't know if you saw that fight. You need to see it. I beat him. And Bronco, we always talk about it, but I fought Bronco in his home state, Michigan. His dad was something with the commission, okay? And I fought him not too far from his town where he's from, okay, up there in northern Michigan, right? So when I fought him there, I forgot the name of the casino, whatever. But I fought him there. I won that fight. I got the decision that day. I got the decision. That night I got the decision. I won because I did win the fight. I felt I won unanimously. I mean, a lot of people that see it, they're like, "Oh, you won that fight unanimously. There's no way you lost." I want to say like a week later, 2 weeks later, I don't know. They come up with some bull crap. I have no idea that they made the judges made a mistake with the scoring, blah blah blah. That it was a draw. And they changed it to a draw. This happened I'm talking about like a week or maybe 2 weeks after I had already won the fight. But at that point, it was too late because we had already made the fight. With that promoter that I was with at that point, Leon Margulies from Warriors Boxing. They had already made a deal with main events for me to fight Giovanni Lorenzo, number 1, number 2, fight each other. And the winner gets to fight Arthur Abraham. But yeah, that fight with Bronco McCart, I won that fight, man. Everybody's just it's crazy how hey, stuff happens in boxing. That's all I can say.
Politics, we call it politics.
Yes,
but,
politics. Oh, I like that one, politics. Yeah. Hey, I never heard that one. I'm gonna use that one.
That one's for you.
Politics. I'm gonna use that one on Showtime, man. Politics.
I'll be listening for that.
Yes.
You boxed twice more after that. Obviously, you mentioned the IBF middleweight title eliminator against 26-0 Giovanni Lorenzo in Florida. That one took place June 21st of 2008, and then finally your last ever fight, November 8th, 2008, for the IBF middleweight title against the then undefeated and reigning champion Arthur Abraham. You had to travel to Germany for the fight. Tell us about that experience.
Well, when I fought Giovanni Lorenzo, it was on Showtime. Okay, and the main event was Arthur Abraham against Edison Miranda. So I wasn't supposed to beat Giovanni Lorenzo, man. I wasn't supposed to beat. He was the knockout artist, undefeated, out of New York. Dominican, but by way of New York, and I wasn't supposed to beat him. Anyways, I stunned. I surprised. I was the veteran. I surprised the young prospect coming up, whatever. And I earned that fight to fight Arthur Abraham. I got ready for Arthur Abraham. The fight, the first time that we were supposed to fight, I don't have the dates and stuff, but when we were supposed to fight, the fight didn't happen. The day of the weigh-in, everything was fine. The next day, I remember Leon Margulies coming into my room. He said, he's not going to fight. Fight's off. And I'm like, what? They called the fight off because Arthur Abraham supposedly was sick with the flu or something. He didn't feel good. He went to the doctor and he wasn't feeling it. He was sick. So we had to regroup, come back to the United States for another month, train, and then go back to Germany and fight again. Now, I'm not making any excuses. anyways, Arthur Abraham was, I mean, he was just too strong. He was a big guy, too strong. I know I fractured his ribs, with my body shots. I hit him because he came late to the what do you call it, the press conference after the fight, and I fractured his ribs. Had I known that, maybe I would have won an extra round, But yeah, I mean, he beat me just about every round. He was too strong for me. My dad stopped the fight after the 6th round. He says, "That's it, no mas. I'm 37 years old. I have a family, I have kids. No reason to take any more punishment," and that was the end of my career.
Did that make, at that stage, retiring an easy option for you?
Absolutely. Look, I worked myself again. I beat a young guy like Giovanni Lorenzo, and I worked myself to fight for the middleweight title, which is really not my weight, and I wasn't my strong weight. And I fought one of the best because Arthur Abraham was a beast. I mean, look what he did to Jermain Taylor. Look what he did to a lot of people. Knocked them out, in dramatic fashion. And I was content. I said, "There's no way. I mean, I'm done. I'm 37 years old. There's no reason for me to continue and get hurt."
Was there ever really a point in your career, Raul, where you felt like you was on the slide? And if so, what point of your career would that have been?
I'm going to be honest with you. Like, you talking about flat, like I just didn't have it anymore. I never, like, they call it like you can't pull the trigger and stuff like that. I can't really say I felt like that. I mean, I stay in the gym. I fluctuate in weight, but right now I've been running. I've been hitting the heavy bag. I spar with my 19-year-old. We go to the body. I'm 49 years. I'm about to be 49 in August. I feel good. I can never say that, I've taken too much punishment, or I can't pull the trigger. I could never say I've been flat. I mean, I just thought it was, at that point, I'm 37 years old. I thought it was the right thing to do. That's it. I don't need to continue no more.
And obviously later this year, it'll be 12 years since you retired. At any point in that time, have you ever had the itch to want to come back or no?
No. I never had the itch to come back. I'm blessed to have a good job. What I do. I'm with Showtime. I'm around. I cover a lot of the big fights. I do the series Showbox too, up and coming prospects. I'm in the limelight. I'm with all the big fights that I've covered, Floyd Mayweather, Conor McGregor, all the fighters nowadays, Keith Thurman, Danny Garcia. I'm there. So I'm blessed to have a good broadcasting career.
And I want to ask you about your career. Again, this is kind of I guess what's the word I'm looking for? Like a looking back kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Completely evaded me. Yeah, like a looking back type of question. Hindsight question. That's the word I was looking for.
Okay.
If you could go back and change anything, have you got any regrets at all, for your career? Would you go back and change something? If so, what would that be?
Well, I mean, I can't say I have any regrets. It wouldn't be right. But, like, when you're coming up in the professional ranks, you get in, you're inexperienced, like I said, if I knew what I know now, perhaps I wouldn't have taken that Boy Campas fight after the Keith Mullings fight, after I got banged up, cut up really bad. I wouldn't have taken it that soon. Yeah. Another thing is, maybe I would have milked, like what fighters do nowadays. I would have treated it more like business, my title. My world title, maybe I would have milked, like, you know what I mean by milking it, right?
Of course. Yeah.
Maybe, maybe I would have fought different guys and then just waited to fight maybe Oscar De La Hoya, hit the jackpot and would fight for the $1 million, for the $5-10 million payday. You know what I mean? Maybe I would have fought smaller guys. A lot of fighters, they fight smaller guys. A lot of champions, they fought smaller guys coming up, that's the only thing that, the business side of it, we were so inexperienced, me and my father, and that's just the way it went, man. That's all I can tell you. The business side of it, maybe we would have made some different decisions, But besides that, like I said, I had a great amateur career. I still become a world champion. I made some good paydays. I have my health. I have my family. what else can I ask for, man? I'm blessed.
And if you could go back, if you could have gone back, was there anyone that you wished you'd have had the chance to fight but didn't get to fight? I'm guessing it's probably Oscar.
Yeah, I would have loved to fight Oscar, man. He was my Olympic roommate, and I would have loved to fight him. He gave a lot of guys an opportunity, smaller guys to make some money and, have a payday. But, for me, it wasn't even about that. It would have been a great story, a great promotion, I mean, even me and Richard Shaker talked about it, He's the one that, he would always say, oh, man, 1992, they were roommates. Now they meet in the ring. He had the promotion and stuff. But it never happened. It never happened. So, yeah, I would have liked to fight someone like him. And because he was, he moved up in weight, and he was he was a star. He was one of the best of my era. And, that's why Fernando Vargas wanted to fight him. That's why a lot of people wanted to fight him. Why not? It's business, but it's at the same time, you want to fight the best to be the best, and that was my mentality.
And who would you say was the best fighter you ever boxed in your pro career, and who also was the biggest puncher?
Biggest puncher has to be Arthur Abraham.
Yeah,
he's the biggest puncher. Okay, the best from what that I fought is Fernando Vargas.
Yeah, good answers there. And,
yes.
And just what are you up to now? Obviously, aside from being a part of the Showtime boxing team, you mentioned your son. He's a successful amateur, if I'm not mistaken. Just tell us a bit about what you're up to, outside of broadcasting, Raul.
Well, besides the broadcast, and I'm looking forward to getting back to it. Hopefully in July. That's what they're talking about with Showtime and stuff. We've been having them Zoom meetings with Spinoza and all the talent, and they're talking about coming back in July. Not sure what fight, but I'm looking forward to get back to doing my job. Because I've been with the Showtime family now for nine years, and I'm like I said, I'm blessed. And I'm happy that even when I was fighting, I would do broadcasting. I've been doing broadcasting since I want to say 1996. Spanish, English. I worked with everybody. Al Bernstein doing international calls. I worked with Rich Murata, Barry Tompkins, Steve Farhood. Kurt Menefee, Bob Papa. I mean, I worked with all kinds of guys in English. I've done Spanish. So, by the time I got to Showtime, I had a lot of experience, and I'm glad that I've been with them. But, besides that, I own a boxing fitness gym. Just people that do it for fitness, stay in shape, want to be in shape. Kids, women, men of all ages. I spend time with my wife, and I got 2 little ones now. I got remarried. My son Liam, he's gonna be 3 years old, and my daughter Alina, she's a year and 4 months. And then, of course, through a past marriage, I have my oldest son Raul. He tried boxing. He's 27 years old, but it wasn't for him. Arturo, who's 23 years old, he went pro, man. He went up to 10-0. He had signed with Top Rank, and an opponent poked his eye. He poked his eye, and he developed something called a corneal abrasion. It never corneal abrasion, not a detached retina, but it's corneal abrasion. It never healed right. So it never healed right. So we just we took him out of boxing. It wasn't worth the risk, I mean, it's not like he's a kid that's starving and, he needs to box or something like that. But, he's doing good. And then so my 19-year-old Giovanni, he's a pretty good amateur. I want to say he's easily in the top 5 in the United States, top 3 maybe. Wow. He had won the Golden Gloves here before the coronavirus stuff. And we were going to go to the state. We were going to try to win the nationals. And we haven't, I heard in December we have the Nationals too again, but be on the lookout for him. His name, I think my son's pretty good, man. Giovanni Marquez is a good amateur. We tried to make the last Olympic team, but we lost to the guy that made the Olympic team, Tiger Johnson, really good fighter, a lot of experience. My son lost to him. My son's 19, Tiger's like 22, 23, a lot of international experience, and his experience took over, but. Actually, one judge thought we won the fight, but we didn't win the fight. But my son was competitive in that fight against Tiger Johnson, and that's who's representing the United States at 152 for the Olympics in in Tokyo if they do happen, or I don't know what the deal is with that. But, yeah, my son Giovanni, my dad trains him. I help him out when I can, because I'm busy with my gym and I travel. But that's pretty much what I do, man. That's all I do.
No, that's excellent, man. It's excellent. I love hearing about what everyone's up to. And just really the final question for you, Raul. I'm going to put you on the spot a tiny bit here, but we ask this to everyone that we speak to from overseas. People like to hear this one. Who is your favourite UK fighter? It can be from any era. Who springs to mind? Favorite UK fighter?
Oh man, well you gotta remember my style. You gotta remember my style. I came to fight. So who do you think? I mean, you got names right now? Can you think of somebody that remember my style? And this guy, and this guy loves to drink beer. He used to love to drink. So
he still loves to drink. Don't worry.
And he still loves to drink beer. Yeah, you're right. So you got to know who that is, man. Ricky Hatton.
Ricky, yeah, of course.
Ricky Hatton, yes sir. Ricky Hatton, man. Good fighter. Had a lot of balls. He came to fight. Yeah. And I would pick him as one of my favorite fighters, and he drew big too, man. He was a big name.
Yeah, he really was. Very popular answer. And just finally, Raul, if you've got any closing message just to our listeners before we let you go, if you want to sign out with a nice message, you're free to do so. Obviously, you don't always get to speak to your supporters from over here in the UK.
Well, I mean, I do want to say that I've never had the opportunity to go cover a fight in the UK, and hopefully one day that'll happen. I'm sure I got a lot of fans over there too, and sometimes it's surprising, when you go to different countries, how fans treat you. I'm usually surprised, like I go to, when I've been to Puerto Rico, when I've been to Mexico, but I've never been to the UK. And it would be nice to cover a fight over there. And, all I can say is that, I love boxing. Boxing is a great sport. It's done a lot for me. And I hope people keep following the sport, after this pandemic. We should get back in the groove in July and watch Showtime boxing and just support boxing, man. Support all the boxing fighters all over the world, all over the world.
Absolutely. Well said. Listen, Raul, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you this week, my friend. Thank you so much for your time, and hopefully we can speak again in the future.
Yes, sir, man. Thank you.
Okay, and this wraps up episode 241 of the BoxHard Podcast. I've been your host, Joey Coastman. Eddie Chambers has been with me for the duration of the show. A massive thank you to our sole guest on this week's podcast, the former IBF Junior-Middleweight World Champion Raul Marquez. The only other piece of news really to mention is that Charlie Edwards has left Matchroom. He's now signed a promotional contract with Frank Warren, so all the best to Charlie with that move there. But that's about everything. Remember to tell a friend about the podcast. Thank you all for listening once again, of course. Enjoy your weekends, people, and we shall see you all again next week.